clinking hands. Hi, hello, welcome back to another ASANA breakdown. I do this because it helps me. Last week, Last week, we dove hip first into half pigeon pose. This week, we will be deconstructing the elusive, maybe take your fucking socks off, psycho. Toesies, that's not how you do that. Not warmed up triangle pose. You may have heard quite a few things about triangle pose. She's got a reputation on the streets for having anything but a neutral pelvis. Breaking news, this just in. We're not flat up against a pane of glass. Let's say we're in our tall, beautiful mountain, palms shine forward, lifting our little toesy woesies, maybe taking the feet hips width, and stepping the right foot forward. Whoa, maybe widening the stance. We want a wide stance, my guy. We're here, almost in, I would say, arguably, warrior one legs. Straighten that right leg and play with your triangle pose from here. Let's lift this bad boy up, not too far. I was taught this way to do triangle pose. I'm like this. My little hip points are this way, and I'm, oh God, pain. I don't like that. My body doesn't like that. It doesn't feel good. And I can get to about here. The triangle pose we're trying to do today asks of us only one thing. Pull the right hip back and melt the left hip forward. Lengthen, crown to tail. Extend the right arm down to the outside of the right ankle so that I can keep my right wrist underneath my right shoulder. And then once I have this, spinning the heart to the left, maybe even gazing upward, left fingertips in line with the left shoulder, and I'm here. If I'm turning my pelvis to face the left, homie, I don't have that much room, and I got a lot of junk in this trunk, so we want that space. Let's even it out. I'm also realizing now I made a promise last week to wear something a little bit less ridiculous. I did not fulfill that promise to you. And if I ever make that promise to you again, and you expect a different result, homie, that's on you. Sweating. Boy. So let's try that with the opposite leg. Stepping the left foot forward, maybe somewhere between pyramid pose and warrior two is how I like to start off my triangle pose. Wide base, 2 train tracks, pulling, in this case now, the left hip back and the right hip forward, maybe even keeping hands on the hip points here, feeling that rotation, hinging, lengthening, crown forward, releasing the left fingertips to the mat and spinning the heart while keeping my base relatively neutral. And you can go anywhere. Once you have that neutral-ish, stable base, you can take your triangle pose anywhere you want to go, baby. It's up to you. I used to do triangle pose almost like I was leaning up against the wall, having both my little booty cheeks pressed up between 2 panes of glass. I don't know if anyone watching this has ever heard that cue before. I had many times. And I learned in my yoga teacher training that actually, let's try something else because that hurts. So I started incorporating a block into my triangle pose, also because I was very used to placing my hand on the inside of my leg instead of the outside. That was a really big shift for me. Started with a block on the outside of, in this case, my right ankle, and then reaching so that I can really soften this left hip. And there's an oh shit moment in triangle pose. For me, it happens in this general area, the knee area. I don't know about you. That's where I keep a majority of my secrets. And in a pose like triangle pose, I feel a lot of fear that if I balance the load a certain way, my knee will explode and spill all the terrible things I've ever done out and into the world. And I would not want that. Using a block can come in real handy if you're trying to relearn triangle pose, which is something I had to do. So again, turning the toes inward. Ew, I just burped and it was disgusting. And aligning my left wrist under my left shoulder and spinning the heart while keeping the left hip pulling back and that right hip melting forward. And you can see it too. I'm like this, teed out. I'm reaching here. I'm reaching, but if you notice when I reach, there's no movement here. So I can only go so far. I can go all the way down. That's not sustainable. I'm 34 years old, okay? I've made it this far. That in itself is a miracle. I'm trying to keep going. So if you look at my forbidden crevice, now when I reach, I pull my left hip back and my right hip forward. And then I can go naturally much further than I could before. Whereas before, we were moving like this. I really want to bend my knee when I do that because it doesn't feel good. I'm not going to do it too many times because pain. I'm not really into it anymore. It's just not my jam. Anyway, I hope you found some of this helpful. There's plenty of things you can use as a prop, a book, a stool. I would love to hear other variations of triangle pose that work for you, other cues that work for you. Triangle pose is kind of a messy bitch. People are out there saying all kinds of things about triangle pose, making her seem like she's some bitch, when really she's a different kind of bitch. She's kind of a neutral pelvis girly. It's not completely neutral, the same way that Warrior One isn't completely neutral. And stick around because maybe we'll talk about that next week or in the coming weeks. Warrior One, she's also kind of a fucking slippery bitch. So if I'm here in my new version, let's try it from the other side. I just ate like more chocolate covered raisins than any person should probably ever eat in one sitting. So to recap, maybe coming into our triangle pose like this, left foot forward, engaging the foot lock here too, pada bandha, big toe mound, pinky toe mound, and heel. All the corners that you got going on down there in the sole of your foot, your little footsie pads, press into them. Shift forward through the left fingertips as you simultaneously pull the left hip back. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, tick-tock the arms while you melt the right hip forward. Release the left fingertips to a block or to the mat, or maybe resting on the top of the left shin, so long as we're not crashing here. Maybe keep the right fingertips on the right hip points to help guide them forward, and rolling the right shoulder towards the sky to lead the heart and lift the right fingertips. And then you can go anywhere. Maybe pause in your pyramid pose. Maybe bend into this left knee. This is my favorite transition right now. Lifting the right heel, pivoting on the ball of that foot so that we don't get into any trouble with our knees. And then twisting the torso the opposite way, finding a little high lunge prayer twist. Coming back, vinyasa, yada, yada. And that's triangle pose for you. Kind of distracted right now because I've been watching Criminal Minds and just melting my brain. Happy 2025. Tiny announcement. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. here on my YouTube channel, I will be facilitating a live, free 60-minute vinyasa flow class. The chat will be open. Digital doors at 11:45 a.m. I'm in Austin, Texas, so that's the time zone I'm referring to. I'll be facilitating the same flow all of January with lots and lots of options, so you will have so much time and so much space to find your own special, unique way to move that only you can do on your yoga mat in the privacy and comfort of your own home. Invite a friend, invite a pet. There will be cats. I will be available after for a few minutes at least to answer any questions if you want to tell me about your experience. Or you can private message me on my Instagram if you don't feel like, blasting your business all over the internet. That's fine. That's not for everybody. It's not even for me. I don't know why I'm doing this. Excuse me. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have fun with your triangle pose. I would love to hear about any other options that you have. If you have a seated option or maybe even a kneeling version, I would love to hear about the different ways that you have built up your triangle pose. Hopefully this makes that pose a little bit more accessible for you, knowing where to pull your hips, because I don't really hear a lot of teachers out there cueing the hips in that particular way. They mostly cue to lengthen and tee out the arms and tilt, but it's less of a tilt and more of a neutralizing in the pelvis. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you for joining. I hope to see you next week for another
ASANA breakdown.
Namaste.